Well, it's all starting to get a little bit tense, isn't it? We return today for match week 36 predictions from the EFL Championship as things are tight at the top and threaten to become the opposite down at the bottom. We'll be here to preview and predict all 12 matches between Friday and Sunday. And of course, as always, I'll encourage you to do exactly the same in the comment section below. If you beat or match my overall score, you will get a shout out in the next recap, which will be on Sunday night ahead of a full midweek fixture list in the Championship. But for now, before we go and look ahead to this weekend's action, let's go and take a little look back at what was a pretty frustrating midweek. I've had a long run of good, solid performances in a row. I think that pretty much ended, didn't it? Just 2 points for me from the 4 fixtures on Tuesday night. 1 point for the victories for Burnley and Hull, but no perfect scores. And if we go and have a look ahead at the comments section, there was only one perfect score across everyone's predictions. We'll get to you in a minute. Firstly, though, 5 people level with me on 2 points. They are Marco, Chris, Peter, Mello, and Nigel, all regular players. Well done to you. 1 ahead on 3, another regular in Brian. And then top of the tree on 5, the only perfect score of the week, which was boldly for the 0-0 between Preston and Swansea, goes to Gordon amongst his 5 points. Well done to you. You are this week's match week winner. Let's go and look ahead to the weekend action though, because starting on Friday night, we have got a full weekend in a championship. And this one is pretty big at both ends of the table. One looking over their shoulder, one looking up at the playoffs. It is Norwich City versus Oxford United. Norwich at home have been relatively solid, well, for the last 2 years really. Their last home fixture, a 4-2 win against Stoke City. But a story of 1-1 draws on the road, which might not be the worst thing for them. One of the highest draw rates in the top half of the table, a side that maybe would have lost some of those games last year, and they're just now starting to throw together runs where they're doing pretty well. And it was just that really bizarre, abject performance at home to Preston that's ended up costing them recently. Otherwise, it's been a very good run. On the flip side of that, Oxford United, probably more than anyone now, will be looking over their shoulder. A few weeks ago, a dream start under Gary Rowett, comfortably in mid-table. In the last few weeks, well, they've played Coventry, they've played West Brom, they've played Burnley, and they've played a couple of the sides in and around them. They've won nothing. The only positive they can take from the Coventry game last weekend is that they did start scoring goals again. Yes, they shipped 3 at the other end, but they had a bit more of an attacking threat. Didn't deserve to win the game by any means, but they were a bit more potent, which is important. They are, though, looking now at teams starting to catch them. 3 teams 2 points behind, and then after that, an out-of-form Oxford are the closest to the relegation zone. And with Luton picking up a win last week, with Plymouth in half-decent form, I think they will be a little bit concerned at this moment in time. I don't think we can back Oxford to get anything on the road. It's not happened very often this year. And with Norwich scoring goals again at home, with some of their star attacking players back in form, I think I'm going to have to go for them to get a result. Yes, they'll be gutted with the way they threw it away at Blackburn, having gone ahead against 10 men in the 90th minute. But I'm going to go for them for a much more comfortable day at home and a win against Oxford by 2-0. As we move on to another big game at both ends of the table, the first of 2 early kickoffs on Saturday, and maybe one of the form teams in the division. The Mark Robins derby is Coventry City versus Stoke City. It's going to be a weird watch, this one, isn't it, with Mark Robins in the Stoke City dugout. Coventry, though, continuing where they left off in recent seasons, absolutely flying under Frank Lampard with 4 victories in a row against QPR, Sheffield Wednesday, Preston and Oxford. All teams in that sort of mid-table region. They put them all to the sword. Stoke City are another one in that sort of situation. They're just 2 places above the relegation zone, albeit with a 5-point buffer. And a 0-0 draw at home to Watford, while not perfect, did stop the rot a little bit. There wasn't a lot in it. It was a low-quality game. Stoke played on the counter, but they did restrict Watford, who had most of the ball. So a decent point for both sides in the circumstances, but Stoke need to pick up victories. Mark Robins, I'm sure, will be motivated for this one. However, Coventry are flying at the minute. They look fantastic at home. They look really good on the counter-attack. And again, despite the fact they weren't at their best defensively against Oxford, they created bundles of chances on the break again. So, continuing the good work of Mark Robins, will Frank Lampard get to use it against him? I think they'll come out on top. They don't win many games heavily. I'm going to go for Coventry to nick it by 2-1 against the Stoke side, who, bar that Watford game, have really struggled to stop goals going in. The other early kickoff features the side that Stoke played last weekend. It is Watford versus Millwall. Millwall have had a pretty tough week, haven't they? Defeat at Palace in the FA Cup, defeat at home to Bristol City. I'm not going to go on about the Liam Roberts situation because it's a bit farcical at this point. But you have to say for Millwall, it was a pretty poor home performance. Only one shot on target. They weren't able to make the most of set pieces. And in the end, it was a fairly comfortable away day for Bristol City, which is not often what you expect to hear for a side at the Den. So Millwall will be frustrated with their week. I think Watford will be relatively happy with their last couple. A win away at Borough, big win in a derby, and then a 0-0 draw at Stoke when they've been pretty poor away from home most of the year. 7 points out of 9 from that, I'm sure they'd have taken at the start. They're still right in that mix, just 3 points off the playoffs. It's going to go to the wire. But Watford are back in half decent form, and with a home game against Millwall, if they can keep their good defensive run of 3 clean sheets in a row, I'd fancy them to pick up a victory. I don't think it's going to be the most thrilling game of the week, but I think Watford have just got that little bit more star quality. If they do their job defensively from set pieces, I'll back them to win this one by 1-0. And then we move on to the side that Millwall were beaten by in midweek in a first 3 p.m. kickoff. It is Bristol City versus Hull City. Bristol City absolutely flying. I'm really nervous for this because I want to predict a home win, but I know last time I said they were flying and looking great. They then threw in that wretched performance against Swansea. If we talk about the Millwall game though, I know we said that Millwall didn't make the most of set pieces, but Bristol City defended well, made sure they didn't have too many, and on the counter-attack looked brilliant. I know he gets a bit of criticism, but Harry Cornick, useful squad player to have at this level, and showed his qualities off the bench again. I thought it was a really good display from Bristol City, and I think they're looking great at the moment. They're level on points with the playoffs. It was my one question mark over Liam Manning when he came in. Would they be a bit one-dimensional? Would he have a backup plan? Something he struggled with at times at other clubs. He's got it right here. They're not the free-flowing side that you expect to see. They're efficient, they can play in different ways, and they can win games via various methods. So, big credit to them. Hull City, a massive win for them in midweek as well. 2-0 against Plymouth just keeps that gap to the relegation zone to 5, keeps the gap to Plymouth to 6. And they started the second half really well. Again, I'm going to go back to it. They gave up next to nothing defensively. They were rock solid. It was efficient. They did the job. But why did you get rid of Liam Rosenior if you're then going to appoint this style of manager 6 months later? But as it is, Ruben Sellers is doing his job. He's not harming his CV. And Hull City looking pretty likely to stay up now in my book. If they can keep their home form up, they've certainly got a chance. For this one, though, it's going to be difficult. The reason I'm a little bit conflicted is that Bristol City have been brilliant recently, but Hull's best performances have been away at Sunderland and Sheffield United, two of the good sides in the division. Yes, they had a tough day at Burnley. Yes, they were poor at Cardiff. They're a real mixed bag. When they get to play on the counter, they can be a big threat. I think Bristol City will try and be a little bit more balanced, maybe give Hull City a bit of the ball, and as a result, I think they'll just come out on top. I'm not entirely confident about this one. I'm going to go Bristol City with the form book by 2-1. As we move on to another huge game at both ends, this time in the automatic promotion race, the game I'm going to be at on Saturday, it is Burnley versus Luton Town at Turf Moor. Luton got a crucial 1-0 win at home to Portsmouth. Yes, Pompey had a late sitter, which they probably should have equalised from. However, Luton did get the win, and for all the games they've dominated and had lots of chances and not taken them this year, this was one where they got a little bit fortunate with just 2 shots on target, scored a goal and won the game, which we'll take. Now 5 points from safety due to results in midweek. There's still a lot of work to be done, and the away form has been nothing short of diabolical all year. They come up against a Burnley side who did finally concede their first championship goal of the year. That was just before half-time in a 2-1 win against Cardiff, but that has tightened things up at the top again. Now just 5 points separating the top 3 after Leeds drew at West Brom at the weekend, and Burnley are going to be looking at a chance at the top 2, especially if they can get the goals flowing at the other end. That's 2 or more scored in 3 of their last 4 league games. Not something we've seen a lot from Scott Parker's side this year. And while they have conceded their 10th goal of the season, I think they're going to be heavy favourites for this one. I don't see how Luton cope defensively. I'm going because I've not ticked off the ground, but I'm not confident of a result. I'm going to go for Burnley to win this pretty comfortably, and me to be miserable in the away end in a 3-0 defeat at Turf Moor. As we approach the halfway point with another derby between managers, and it features Derby County. It's the John Eustace derby, Derby County versus Blackburn Rovers. This one, well, I can't wait to see the reception John Eustace gets from the away end. It's going to be interesting. But he's at a Derby County side, bottom of the table, and now 7 from safety. And he's not had the desired impacts at the start. Yes, came in at a very difficult time. So far, they've played all sides that are chasing the playoffs effectively. And this is another one in Blackburn Rovers. So, going to be difficult coming up against a lot of his good work from this season. But Derby don't look a goal threat. It's been a big problem for them all season scoring goals. And although they're not conceding too many at the other end most of the time, and their home form has been far more competitive, you just don't back them to win a game at the minute, do you? Blackburn really frustrated for the most part in that 1-1 draw against Norwich, but having gone down to 10 men with 5 to go and then conceding in the 90th minute, it will feel like winning getting that point. And those are the moments in the season that can make a difference. We had a couple of them on our way up with Luton over the years, and you just feel like a point can be really important. So Andreas Weimann popping up with a really crucial goal, their only shot on target of the game, and it made it a decent start in the end for Valérien Ismaël after what could have been a very turbulent weekend. So Blackburn bounce back, they get that unbeaten run on the go again after losing to Swansea heavily. Will Valérien Ismaël's side be up for this one though? Because, let's be honest, John Eustace is going to have one hell of a team talk in there. Surely Derby County have got to score eventually. Ismaël loves a draw, we mentioned that in his manager special. I'm going to go for the Championship's favourite scoreline here of 1 apiece. And if you haven't seen them yet, you can check out both manager specials up in the eye above. Into the second half, another huge game in both races. It is Plymouth Argyle versus Sheffield Wednesday. Plymouth's exertions against Manchester City probably cost them a little in midweek. They didn't offer a lot. They looked fatigued. And to be honest, they offered no threat at all. Conceded a couple of goals early in the second half and never looked like getting back into it. Got to work on getting shots on target and attempts on goal on the road. But we've mentioned it before, the home form is going to be pivotal. They've had good wins against the likes of Millwall. Yes, they were frustrated against Cardiff, but they offered opportunities. Are Plymouth going to be able to do the same here? Sheffield Wednesday are a side that do give up chances, conceded 8 in their last 3, albeit when they have played one side in the bottom half recently against Swansea, they did get a 1-0 victory and a clean sheet. So I do think this is going to be a tough test for Plymouth. I think Sheffield Wednesday are open. Look, they're 7 points off the playoffs. They're not in the best of form. While they've had a very good season, they've improved immeasurably. I don't think they're quite there yet. It's a solid, stable season, but defensively there's work to be done. On this occasion, Plymouth are going to have to go aggressive. It's a sort of game at home. Every home game now they have to win virtually. They're going to need another 15, 16 points this year at a minimum. And that probably means for them winning 5 home games given their away form, doesn't it? So I'm going to go for Plymouth to go all-out attack. I think Sheffield Wednesday have got the quality to hit them on the break. So I think both might cancel each other out here. And I'm going to go for the thriller of the weekend. 2 goals apiece at Plymouth Argyle. As we move back into that automatic promotion race, as Sheffield United face Preston North End. An interesting week for Preston. A frustrating 0-0 draw against Swansea at home in the Championship in midweek. Wasn't their best result, but they dominated the game. We've mentioned it before though. Have Preston got a consistent cutting edge? The simple answer is no. If Paul Heckingbottom gets backed in the summer, if he's able to add a bit of quality, championship firepower up front, I think they're going to be in for a really decent season next year. But for now, a disappointing day, a frustrating one. But they are, of course, in an FA Cup quarter-final. They're going on a run. They're not going up or down this year. They'll probably prioritise that. I think it's a real positive season for them, and Heckingbottom's done a good job. For Sheffield United last weekend, another one of those gritty victories away at Queen's Park Rangers. Yes, they made it difficult for themselves late on. They were clinging on a bit. QPR were probably the dominant force in the second half, certainly after they got the goal. But Sheffield United have been doing this all season, winning ugly. They're the best at it in the division. Then turning a lot of those draws into victories, something that Burnley haven't always done. And obviously, if it wasn't for the points deduction, they'd be one off the top now. Chris Wilder's done a magnificent job transforming that squad. And if you take out the Leeds game, they're on a brilliant winning run. They're not playing fantastically, and Preston are a very good side. So I don't think there's going to be a huge amount in this. If you take out the cup tie in their last 5 championship games, Preston have only scored 3 goals. I don't think they're going to add to that tally here. I think Sheffield United will win at home. I think it's going to be cagey. 1-0 for the Blades. And the other game in that big battle at the top is Sunderland versus Cardiff City. We're in must-win territory for Sunderland again if they want to stay in that race. They're up at home against a side in that bottom end of the table, in that relegation race, but Sunderland had that against Plymouth and against Hull. They failed to win. They gave away 2 poor goals against Watford. The only team they've beaten at home recently is Luton, which, to be fair, is not a difficult thing to do. I can tell you from experience watching this year. For Cardiff, 2 defeats in a row in the Cup and then in midweek in the league, but did score past Burnley and put up a half-decent effort, it must be said. Burnley was still the better side in that game, but Cardiff created some very good chances, and on another day, they could have nicked something from it. Sunderland obviously got that crucial win last Friday at Sheffield Wednesday. They've got match winners in their team. They've got moments of magic. I don't know what to go for this one, though. I'm kind of scarred by their home form against the bottom half sides. But I'm going to go for them to replicate the Luton performance. I don't think Cardiff offer as much of a goal threat as some of the others down there. Not scored more than one in a game in their last 6. So I'm going to go for Sunderland to win by the same score as they did against Luton. 2-0 at the Stadium of Light. As we move on to another game in that playoff race with another side returning to form, they visit Swansea City, and I'm talking, of course, about Middlesbrough. Swansea under Alan Sheehan, yet to concede a goal, 2 games, 4 points and 0 conceded. Not quite the excitement of the 3-0 win against Blackburn in that 0-0 draw against Preston. As we mentioned, they sort of clung on for dear life and didn't really deserve the point they got from it. But they hung on in there and they fought and they stuck and ground out a result, which is something they hadn't often done in the weeks leading up to Luke Williams' departure. For Middlesbrough, 2 wins in a row against Stoke and Derby, 2 of those sides down at the bottom end of the table. Swansea are another of those that have been in the bottom half for a while and have been struggling. Yes, they're better under Alan Sheehan, but Middlesbrough, they'll find a way to break them down, I think, because you look at Borough on the road, they have produced some results when it matters. Because you look at Borough overall, they do go through spells, and at the moment they seem to be hitting a good one. Lots of defeats followed by a couple of victories. But I am impressed with Sheehan Swansea, and their last home performance was great. I had 2-1 to Middlesbrough down. I'm thinking to go for another 2-2. I think I'm going to change it. Every time I've done it this season, it's worked against me. I'm going to go for 2 goals apiece. Swansea 2, Middlesbrough 2. And the final game on Saturday sees Tony Mowbray's West Bromwich Albion take on QPR. QPR probably edging towards nothing to play for now after their recent results. But again, been a much more stable season, been a much improved side. But as we mentioned, they've just not got that goal threat. They were the better side for the most part against Sheffield United. They created chances. They had so much of the ball in the territory, but they just don't have the person who can put the ball in the net consistently. And if they can add that to their team next season, they're going to be right up there for me. As it is, it's still 4 defeats in their last 6. Unfortunately for them, they have lost all of the away games in that run as well. And for West Brom, you've got to say, after a solid win against Oxford, a very good point on the road against Leeds United, to come back from 1 down and then to hang in there as well. It's not something we see from too many sides. In the end, they could have nicked it on the break themselves, but restricted leads to very few great opportunities, and that's something that almost every team struggled to do on the road this season. It's almost the first time we've seen sort of the mix of Carlos Corberan's disciplined defence and Tony Mowbray's counter-attacking flair, and it almost came together in a perfect storm. As it is for this one, I think it's going to be too much for QPR. They're conceding goals on the road, but more importantly, they're not scoring enough. West Brom's home form has been okay. I know they had the shock against Blackburn, but they beat Wednesday, they beat Oxford, and I think they'll beat QPR. I'm going to go for a bit more of an aggressive scoreline here. We're finishing with a flourish this weekend. I'm going 3-1 to West Bromwich Albion. And the final game is free to air on ITV on Sunday lunchtime. It is Portsmouth versus Leeds United. I would say it's big at both ends of the table, but Pompey just about clear of the pack now. Could have done with getting that late draw against Luton, which they should have. They missed a golden opportunity, but otherwise they didn't create a great deal. They were really poor first half. And to be honest, there are very few sides this season that have created that little against this Luton Town defence, albeit Luton did have a couple of players back, but still not enough for me to feel too hard done by. But prior to that, they did beat 3 sides in a row. They got the results they needed to get out of trouble. And it's a good job as well, because this game is going to be a very difficult one. Leeds, I know, frustrated against a good West Brom team, but prior to that, beat Sunderland and Sheffield United in 2 huge Monday night footballs. Also battered Watford and Coventry on the road recently. And I just think they're going to have too much. I know it was a draw against West Brom, but I don't think that's the worst result. If they can get back to winning ways in this one, they're going to be in fine form. Portsmouth haven't been scoring bundles. I know they picked up a couple against poor defences, but when they played the top sides, didn't score against Burnley, only got 1 against Sheffield United, and failed to take chances in that game as well. So I'm going to go for Leeds United to keep a clean sheet, and I'm going to go for a comfortable away win. Don't think it's going to be anything exceptional in terms of the scoreline. I'm just going to go for the standard 2-0 to Leeds United. So with that out of the way, let's have a quick recap of what I've gone for this weekend. 2 home teams to score 3 goals. I'll be watching one of them as an unfortunate away fan. Burnley to beat Luton and West Brom 3-1 against QPR. I've gone for Leeds and Sheffield United to both keep pace with wins at the top of the table as well, and Sunderland to just about stay in the race with a crucial 3 points at home to Cardiff. Those are just my predictions for this weekend's action though. Do you agree or disagree? Let me know in the comments, and if you beat or match my overall score, you will get a shout out on Sunday evening when we return to look ahead to a full midweek in Matchweek 37. In between now and then though, please do chuck a thumbs up on the video, subscribe and turn that notification bell on. And a little plug quickly, if you are into sort of retro nostalgia football from the 2000s, come and relive my childhood with me, as over on the FM channel we're playing FM06 in a championship with Luton Town. It's bundles of fun. For now though, thank you very much for watching. Good luck to everyone at the weekend. Hopefully I'll be completely wrong about my misery in the away end at Turf Moor. I'll see you on Sunday to recap it and look ahead to Matchweek 37.